And now we're getting Bloodsport, a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he goes to Thailand and fights Tong Po.
Wait a minute.
What?
That sounds awfully loud like Kickboxer. Did you watch the wrong movie again? Because this is like going on 2 years now of you doing this, all right?
You mean that's not Bloodsport?
No, that's Kickboxer, man. You watched the movie where he avenged his brother who got paralyzed by Tong Po?
So he doesn't train with an old master of martial arts and then fights a big dude at the end?
These movies are so similar that it's very easy. If you didn't know and someone just described the plot line, you'd probably be like, yeah, I watched it, and you probably would watch Kickboxer because they're very, very similar.
Plus, Kickboxer was free on Tubi, whereas I had to buy Bloodsport.
To whom it may concern, I went looking for the Bloodsport Blu-ray, and I can't find one. Well, Kickboxer is a year after this, but this is Jean-Claude Van Damme's first real big foray into American movies beyond him almost being Predator. This movie based on the real-life person Frank Dux.
Which has been disputed, and it's called Dukes, sir.
Mr. Dukes.
Mr. Dukes, like, put up your dukes.
May or may not be a false prophet because there's conflicting reports that maybe this whole thing was a sham.
I mean, he still has the records, so he's had to fight at some point.
We don't even know the credibility of the records.
Nah.
Because basically the idea is if potentially if he made up this whole tournament, then what else is made up? But we don't know.
Considering the fact this is supposed to be an illegal tournament, I'm pretty sure he should be shot dead by now. If he was talking about an actual illegal tournament.
But I think that the fact that he's the fight choreographer of this movie and then other martial arts movies means there's some credibility to him being some kind of martial arts person. You can't just magically wake up and be a fight choreographer for martial arts movies if you don't have some type of skill level there. So I'll say this is one of those movies that I do remember used to play on television all the time. So I watched bits and pieces all throughout my childhood on TV, but it had been a long time since I feel like I watched it from the beginning. So a lot of stuff I'm kind of getting for the first time. I didn't know that the creators of Mortal Kombat were heavily inspired by this.
Like the game or the movie?
The game.
Okay.
Because the game became before the movie.
Okay.
So the game, basically, the creator said he wanted to make a more grittier version of Bloodsport, was his quote. And even the Johnny Cage character had a lot of this Frank Dux character in him.
Dukes.
Had a lot of this Frank Dukes character in him.
You just love saying ducks.
So I don't know if it influenced Street Fighter, but Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat both came out after this movie. And then there was a lot of like sort of how Halloween inspired a lot of slasher ripoffs. There were a lot of tournament style fighting movies after this movie. So a lot of movies owe this movie a lot in terms of that tournament style. Best of the Best, which I haven't seen in a long time, but apparently it's pretty good. Apparently so.
How do you not know if it's pretty good? You watched it.
Best of the Best?
Yes.
It's just been a long time though.
Oh, okay.
Is it the best of the best? Is it better than the rest? Or is it just a mess? I don't know. I don't know.
You going to try doing a rapping career now? What the fuck?
Hey, man. You should see me on 8 Mile. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait. Let me rephrase. What the duck?
What the duck? Yes, what the duck? What the Dukes?
What
the Dukes is wrong with me, man? Yeah, so, and, you know, we see modern tournament movies. We saw Warrior, Never Back Down. It's pretty much a staple in the fighting genre is the tournament movie. Even going back to Karate Kid. Hell, Van Damme has had a couple movies. The movie called The Quest was a tournament-style fighting movie. Sidekicks, sort of, but not really. I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for tournament fighting movies.
I now need to see The Quest, though.
I do. And apparently it's also Frank Dux, I guess, worked again with Van Damme.
Dukes.
Frank Dukes again worked with Van Damme on the Quest movie. Apparently hadn't been outed yet as a fraud at that point. I love movies where like something happens and then like a name goes on the big board. Although I do have to question. Answer me this, Nick. How the hell do they get the time of the fight so quickly on the board after each fight? Because the fight would happen and then it was automatically the time would come up. And I was like, yo, who in the back is like putting that together that quickly?
Well, when we get there, I'm going to dispute the times.
All right, let me give some quick background. We already established Frank Dukes.
Hey, you finally said it right.
Apparently, Frank. Yes, we established Frank Dukes on set as fight choreographer. The movie wanted to be as authentic as possible, so all the filming is actually on location in Hong Kong. Thankfully, not Vancouver, Canada. Sometimes you see a movie and it looks like a beautiful setting, but then you look at the IMDb and you're like, Vancouver.
Yes.
How many times has Vancouver fooled us?
Every time during Supernatural with every episode.
Yeah, every time Jason goes somewhere, it's
Vancouver.
actually Vancouver. I don't care what they're telling you, it's Vancouver.
But he took Manhattan.
Manhattan, Canada, yes. Filmed in Hong Kong with real fighters. There's no actors in this movie. These are all trained fighters. And it's probably why a lot of them don't have any dialogue. Because they're like, you're here to fight, not to give dialogue.
Well, Chong Li had dialogue.
There's only 3 characters that have dialogue of the fighters, and that's Jackson, Frank, and Chong Li. Chong Li and Van Damme actually close friends in real life. Also, Van Damme and the guy who plays Tong Po from Kickboxer, they both came to America together as teenagers, and they're best friends also. So Van Damme looking out for his friends, making them all the villains in his movies. Which means
Van Damme's friends with Chong Li, you said? I missed that part.
They're best friends too.
Oh.
And you know what makes sense about that is that you can always hit your friend harder than you can a stranger because you're like, hey, you kind of get what I'm doing here.
Especially since your friend Chong Li was a bodybuilder and can hit a lot harder.
Yes. The movie after filming, the studio didn't like it, so Van Damme himself had to edit it. Now, this is an urban legend. I don't know if Van Damme actually went in there and did the editing, but apparently that's how it got released, was Van Damme offered them a new version of it, and they're like, okay, this one's good.
That explains why the editing is so bad.
Yeah, the editing is bad, and I think that's on Van Damme if he actually did edit it to release it. All right, so before we get into the tragic part of the movie, the very, very beginning, I do think is very smart storytelling to show all the characters, the fighters, in their everyday life getting ready for this tournament. They show the tournament, the fight arena. So you kind of get a feel like, oh, some shit's going down here. We really don't know what's going on. We see Chong Li kicking ice boxes.
But we do get something from Chong Li. He said something about the Kumite.
Yes.
And Jackson's agent also.
Yes. The Kumite, which is a secret fight tournament that a lot of people know about. Well,
right.
We'll get to that also, I guess. But
now that we've gotten over
the opening credits are solid, but then when the opening credits end, some bullshit about to happen here.
I don't know, sir.
Yeah.
It's like, kid, what the fuck are you doing?
All right, what Nick is referring to is this weird flashback where we're cutting back to Van Damme as a kid and a teenager, and for some reason, some unknown reason, the actor they got is worse than any actor I've seen in any horror movie, any child actor I've seen in a horror movie. He's worse than any child actor I've seen on a TV show. He's worse than any child actor I've seen in my school play when I was in kindergarten. We get about 5 to 6 excruciating minutes of this kid actor. I know what they're going for. They're going for,
like an emotional stake between that connection of the character with the master.
The master's family. I think that
I would need a better acted kid.
Yes. And also, I think I maybe would have put this in the middle of the movie. Maybe when he's like, after his friend gets hurt, maybe then we cut back to his backstory, because I think you could have just cut to like, started with him on the bus ride to the tournament or whatever. I don't know if you need all this at the very beginning.
Yeah, we get all the training, but the training, including...
There's one very cool thing in training, and that's the whole the split thing.
Yeah.
Van Damme is known for the splits, and that's being his first introduction, this being his first big movie. Him being stretched on the rope in the splits does look pretty damn...
Painful,
yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, from everybody, not just the kid, but from the end of the opening credits to the actual movie...
Yes.
...is also poorly acted.
Yeah.
From the Shidoshi, from fucking Tanaka, from the Tanaka's wife, who doesn't say a damn word half the time. From the child actors, from Jean-Claude Van Damme, they all pissed me off.
It feels like a different movie. It's so bad it feels like a different movie. I made a note here that, for me, the movie really starts at about the 18-minute mark is when he's on the bus.
Yeah.
That's 18 minutes in. That's where he meets Jackson. If you start at this point, now it's like, okay, now we're getting a pretty good martial arts movie. But the first 17 minutes are a big yeah.
Yeah, so I watched this the night before, and then I watched it this morning for my notes, and I actually fast forwarded all the way to the 18-minute mark.
I think probably there's nothing memorable in that first 17 minutes.
Well, we don't
then you
even
can.
need that first 17 minutes. The only thing we get that plays over and over again in this movie is the fact he's a military member going on leave, and the I got a question here.
The training scenes, by the way, they're used later in flashbacks during montages and stuff anyway, so you don't necessarily need them either.
The real question I got is, so apparently absolutely everybody in this man's command knew he was going to Hong Kong for the Kumite. Why would you, being a military officer, because I think he was a captain, tell people, yeah, I'm not only going to Hong Kong, but I'm going to do an illegal sport, an illegal fighting tournament that could easily get me kicked out of the military, or I could die.
The smart move would have been like, listen, I'm going to Hong Kong on a vacation.
Well, that's all he needs to tell him.
Yeah, so
the fact that he had to have told them, I'm going there for the Kumite, because how else would his command and the government know he's going there to fight in the Kumite unless he said something?
Yeah, what they should have done is they should have had him leave, and then they found some paper or something left behind saying that something basically where they put two and two together and okay, well, there's an advertisement here or an invitation to the Kumite. Kumite. Is it Kumite or Kumite?
Kumite.
It's spelled in a weird way without
Kumite.
Kumite. Okay. You could say Kumite, but Kumite.
Well, it's Kumite because they say it plenty of times in this movie.
What if Harold and Kumar went to Kumite? Would that have been a good movie too?
No, they'd be dead in 5 seconds. Chong Li would freaking break their backs like Bane with Batman.
Yeah, I don't know if you need the whole military part of the story because, again, if you just cut him on the butt, okay, once you have that backstory, it's okay, no matter what he's doing in his life, he's going to make it to this tournament, right? So, but why do we need him to be having left the military? I guess they're sticking so true to the idea of it's a true story, so they're going by what Frank Dukes is telling them when they're doing the script. But I don't know if it adds anything for him to be going against his orders or that to be there.
Does that mean that the actual Frank Dukes stupidly told his command that he's going to join an illegal martial arts tournament? Because guess what? Your leave can and will be canceled in 5 freaking seconds. I know it's happened to me.
He told them, but the fact is he still has to he has to escape. He has to go there, escape while he's taking a shower. So it's no matter what, he still has to
he's AWOL at this point because what's bad is
no matter where he's going, once he leaves without in that way, they're gonna come after him.
Yeah, but the problem I have with this whole thing is all you had to do is get your leave, and then you can do whatever the hell you want as long as it's technically not illegal because you are still a representation of the Army or Marines, whatever he was in.
He's being honest to the point of being stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
What am I doing? Oh, I'm going to go fight in this legal tournament where I'm going to potentially be killed.
And that's when his leave would be cut right then and there. And if he's still left for it, well, he's no longer in the military. In fact, he's going to be in jail.
Well, and here's what happens is basically they deny it, so then he has to jump out while he's taking a shower and go make his own way.
Well, what's bad is the guy didn't even say, oh, your leave has been denied. It was, oh, well, the command wants to talk to you. They were still going to give him his leave. They were just going to tell him, don't do that stupid shit.
Nah, they weren't going to let him go. They're going to be watching him probably close eyes until the end of the tournament to make sure he doesn't go, I'm guessing. So on the bus, Frank meets Jackson, or he sees Jackson, but they don't actually really meet yet.
Not until they play the game at the hotel or bar, wherever
Jackson
they're at.
Gets his ass kicked 4 rounds in a row.
Yep.
I wouldn't keep playing the game if I keep losing that quickly. As someone, I'd be like, maybe this game isn't for me, but Jackson seems glutton for punishment and wants to keep losing. But I buy them becoming friends. It seems natural. They seem like two personalities, with him being more laid back and him being more
aggressive,
outspoken. It seems like they would actually fit well. So I buy them, and Jackson's one of those great, you don't see it as much more, but just you kind of know what he is from the very first scene, and he's never nothing more than that. He's just immediately loyal, upfront, straightforward dude. He's not going to turn his back on Van Damme. He's not here to suddenly become a villain. He is what he is, and he's presenting nothing but his actual self, pretty much. These days, he'd be in the he'd be a character who, like, in the halfway through the movie is like has some ulterior motive, or just like
He's too stupid.
he was planted there to like
Too much of a redneck.
So he's planted there to watch him. Yeah, well, and I think his character, he never even shows any martial arts skills. He's just there. But
Well, he has no martial arts skills. He's just a strong man.
yeah, so it's like the fact that he gets so far in the tournament is one thing also.
With him being a strong man, he can not only take punishment, but he can dish it out. I guarantee you, one hit from him is almost a killing blow.
What's crazy too, this movie also heavily inspired the idea of MMA, because again, it's like you have all these different styles coming together to fight, and like in MMA, you'll have some dudes who are like stronger strikers, some dudes are like submission dudes. So it's like it's pretty interesting. It's not just like one style of fighting coming, whatever. So I don't know if it's an annual event, but it happens maybe once in a while.
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years, and this time the Triad has given the go-ahead to have it in Hong Kong, which it's very interesting because the Triad is a scary group, so you would think there'd be a lot more enforcing of the rules and stuff than there is.
You'd think but then again, no one really breaks the rules. Well, killing people is allowed in this if it's technically an accidental death.
Yeah, well, if it's accidental, but he does it in a very purposeful way.
Well, good luck proving it was.
He's also throwing
purposeful.
shit in people's eyes, which I can't.
Yeah, but that was.
I
at
can't
the
think
end.
that's part of the rules. There's no way.
Well, to be fair, they did say. Actually, no. Mr. Lin does say there is no. There are no real rules.
There's no rules, but there's no way you can use weapons. That just wouldn't make sense.
He didn't use weapons. He used cocaine. Why do you think Why do you think Jean-Claude Van Damme's face was like?
If Van Damme probably would have liked it if it was cocaine. He would have been energized.
Not in his eyeballs.
He probably been energized. The part that went into his nose, he'd been like, "Oh."
And the nose is fine, but in his eyeballs, no, that shit burned. I bet.
No, it looked like it burned, but I think it was salt. It wasn't.
It was fucking cocaine.
It was not cocaine.
He had cocaine eyes.
You think he's gonna waste cocaine?
Yes.
From the 80s?
If it means he gets to win.
Let's talk about the. Let's go back to this brick thing.
Oh yeah, Frank kills a brick.
It's called Demick.
Tall Demac.
Demac or Demick. I personally don't think it's possible to hit the top bricks in a way where it only breaks the bottom brick.
But this movie is based on someone's actual life. He had to have done it.
Yeah, I like when Jackson tries to do it. He's like, this movie has some fun comedic moments. That's a funny one, and just breaks the brick on his head. But the best part about the brick scene is Chung-Li just being like,
bricks don't fight back.
Bricks don't fight back. Now I looked that up, and it's a nod to in Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee's character says boards don't fight back.
Yeah, he says that to Chong-Li's character. I think he was called Bolo in that movie, which is what he used as a stage name after that movie.
Yeah. So so that's a nod to that, and apparently a lot of his lines in this movie are like nods to things that Bruce Lee said in Enter the Dragon.
That's fair.
I mean, Enter Dragon is like the original tournament movie.
From what I understand, they were friends.
Yes, I believe it.
Apparently, Bolo is a very friendly guy. You don't look it.
Yeah. I wrote down. I'll say this: I didn't really care for the romance with the reporter and Frank.
So the reason is because they chose a blonde that reminds us as the girl from Friday the 13th Part 5.
I mean, I can't say I was thinking that exactly. I was thinking more that I don't think it added anything.
It didn't. There was no reason.
The scene where they're at
Plus
dinner.
He leaves her anyway.
Yeah, the scene where they're at dinner and stuff like that, I didn't really see the purpose of it. It almost would have made more sense if she was more a mysterious or against him figure as like the human bad guy person maybe, but I
We already had a human bad guy.
Yeah, but then there's always like the muscle bad guy, and then there's like the businessman, the business person bad guy.
So what they should have done is casted a redhead for this role and made her against him just to eventually fall in love with him. That's what you're saying.
If only Nick could have wrote the movie. So I didn't care for that. I understand in the 80s they always had to shoe in like a love interest, but their chemistry never really clicked for me.
Well, here's one thing I really hate. Yeah. Casting Forrest Whitaker as a stupid ass cop.
Forrest Whitaker, who would go on to win Oscars, one of the best actors in the world. Bumbling. Okay, the problem with the military storyline is that, again,
why would you send cops to do the military's job for one? They didn't say they were MPs.
Well, I thought they were connected somehow, but I would think you would send more people,
especially knowing this guy can fight,
and more capable people. You're sending basically like two people that pretty much they're gonna have to shoot him probably from a distance to get him. You have to shoot him in the leg and bring him that way because they're not gonna get close enough with the little tasers to actually tase him. And even then, I'm not convinced that he wouldn't take the taser and just shut up their ass. So.
Well, for one, he does do that. Not shove it up their ass, but he does take it from them at one point. But you gotta praise Jackson. Just met this dude in one day. Y'all, y'all just get through a 1 day's worth of Kumite fights.
Yep.
And the first thing Jackson does when he sees two cops bugging his best friend, tackles the shit out of him.
Tackles them and puts them at a risk of getting tasered because their reaction probably was going to be to taser Jackson. Someone's attacking them, you have a taser hand.
I mean, Whitaker threw it in his face like, you do it again, I'll get you.
But that's what I'm saying. Jackson is the ultimate loyal, everybody wants a friend like that. I do love the chase scene where they're chasing Van Damme because Van Damme's just playing with them.
Well, he knows they can't catch him. Look at Forrest Whitaker. He ain't a runner in this movie. Look at the old man. He definitely ain't a runner in this movie.
Now they cannot catch him, but Van Damme's basically like, man, you know what? My daily cardio. I'm about to go run around, make them fall in the water. I think the approach they did that, making that comedic, was way better than if it was just like a straightforward chase scene.
Well, that's because we're going to get a whole lot of serious in this movie. That few comedy points here and there is actually a great thing.
There's some light moments. The comedy works very well in this movie, you're right, because there's going to be a lot of serious stuff. And Van Damme also has some of that Schwarzenegger thing, too, where, like, in all his movies, he always does, like, you remember that kickboxer scene where he's dancing in the thing? Mm. He is prone to, like, add in some comedy for sure. Stallone, I think, is always a little bit more serious in his movies.
Yeah, but you can definitely tell Van Damme's probably someone that you would not mind hanging out with.
Oh yeah, I go this way like hard target too. I'm a sucker for Van Damme. Something about his nature. That's how he is. It's like it's kind of like likable, and you feel like you probably would want to hang out with him a little bit.
So now that we've talked about all the side stuff, we can talk fully about the Kumite now.
Well, I wrote down the tournament starts 35 minutes in, and from that point on.
Movie's action-packed.
It's all good stuff, basically.
Yeah,
this last hour or so. So I've seen Kickboxer a lot. So in my head, I was doing a comparison, especially on the second time I watched this, and I came away feeling that Kickboxer has a better story and maybe better acting.
I say better acting because I remember Jean-Claude in that movie being pretty good with it.
Yeah, and it makes sense because it's after this, so he's growing as an actor. But this movie has so much more fighting.
Oh yeah.
This movie, like Kickboxer, has a fight at the beginning and a fight at the end, but then there's a lot of training in the middle.
Yeah.
Once this tournament starts, I would say this has more fighting than most movies I've ever seen. You get all these montages with like different fighters, and mind you, these are all trained fighters, so these aren't like actors playing the role.
Yep. I'm going to say one thing. Something highly pissed me off of this movie.
Yeah.
Why did we get a black dude jumping around like a monkey?
I don't know.
There was no way that's a fighting style.
So that's the only thing I'm thinking about because I remember I played Tekken 3 as a kid.
You're probably thinking of Lateef Crowder where he did the actor's
character named Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie.
Eddie had the same style where it's like he's on the ground.
So what Eddie was doing was capoeira. It's pretty much a martial arts that looked like a dancing style, so that way the slaves could not.
I know we're saying monkey, but this looked like that's what he was doing.
No.
If we put a side by side of like Eddie and Tekken and this dude, it looks like they're based on each other almost.
No, I can show you a person who actually remember the movie The Protector with Tony Jaa.
Yeah.
So remember that church scene, the very first fight in the church.
Yeah.
Put that fighting style together. And tell me it looks like this one.
Okay, probably not.
Because fuck you.
But I'm just saying what he's doing here, it's not ineffective. He actually gets pretty far. It's just that eventually he goes against a dude who's like 5 times his size. But staying on the ground, if you're like a short person, it seems like it makes sense.
I would not have been too pissed off about that if he didn't act like a fucking monkey. The guy literally licked his hand and then scratched his head with it.
Yeah, it was a weird characterization. I think the actor probably, or the fighter, I guess, and I assume he's a real fighter, so this must have been his style. But maybe he got into the character too much and was like, let me add in some animalistic things to it.
And you know what?
But I can see where it is a weird thing for sure.
You know what? After this, I am going to show you Lateef Crowder because I just wish he had his own movie. But I guess watching Capoeira with the entire movie would probably get pretty boring.
Yeah. So we get basically each day of the fighting, we get like a fighting montage of the fights.
Except for the more important ones, like you got Frank fighting the Hassan.
Yeah.
And so this is where we bring up
Is Hassan the big dude?
No, Hassan was the guy that he pretty much embarrassed at the beginning when he was trying to get the girl.
Oh yeah, okay.
So in this fight, it says that Van Damme or Frank beats this guy in 12 seconds.
Yeah. So
do you want to go through that scene and actually count how long that fight was? Because it was longer than 12 seconds.
But wait a minute, this fight though, the dude played dead for like 2 minutes, and then he got up. Was that still part of the time?
That should have been. That most likely was part of the time because
they called it again the record because they called it at that point. But then afterwards he gets up. But again, this is one of those comedic moments where he gets up and walks over to him and just gets like knocked back down. That was hilarious.
Yeah, but still, there was no way because I counted, and it was definitely longer than 12 seconds. It was like 20.
Long 12 seconds, and again, no way they're getting it on the scoreboard that quickly, instantaneously. It's on the scoreboard the way it is. All right, this is 1986. There's no way. I refuse to believe that.
Also, I do want to give props to this movie's first fight montage, having that Kumite like hair metal music playing.
Let me just say this: the soundtrack and score are amazing in this movie. The main song is "Fight to Survive." That. From the movie, though I hadn't seen it in a long time, I remember that song from my childhood. That song stuck with me pretty much all throughout. But and not only that, but the score when Chung Li has his first fight, when he's taking all his clothes coming down, he has like kind of a horror score that goes with his movements and stuff.
Well, because he literally has no problems killing people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. But it makes him much more of a badass, like the music that always plays when he's around. I guess we should go and talk about Chung Li.
Well,
I think Chung Li is one of the most badass people of all time. I think that as impressed I was with the T-1000, I'm more impressed with Chung Li.
So the actor that plays Chung Li, one, he's not a bodybuilder now, so he's actually lost a lot of muscle and weight. He still has a sinister looking face, though. He looks like someone who will put a bullet in your head and not think twice about it.
He has this crazy look, especially after he wins the fights. Mm-hmm. It's like he's smiling, but he's also, it's like there's so much going on in his facial expressions, and then he's so hyped up, he's jumping around, he's hyping the crowd. He's a scary dude with some of his facial expressions.
Well, scary dude, but he's also, at the same time, he knows it's for show, so he's trying to build that show up.
So when I was deciding between him and Tong Po, now I give him the edge because, during the fights, he's taking a moment to hype up the crowd. He's a showman, so he's like making it entertaining for the crowd too.
Whereas Tong Po's more of the serious, wants to get the fight over and done with.
Yeah, like the most intriguing thing about Chung Li is that you don't see him in his day-to-day life. You're wondering like, maybe it's this dude like, what if he goes back to his life, he's like an English teacher or something like that.
Well, he's definitely an English teacher.
He comes home to his wife, he's like, man, I got carried away at work, I killed someone again. Like it's interesting thing about what he is like in his actual day-to-day life. He's so, you only see him in the fighting context, so he just seems like a super villain.
Yeah. But one thing I want to say about this actor is because of his face and the fact he was a bodybuilder, at least the 7/8 of his movies, he was the villain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard to see him go on the hero's journey. The other thing I noticed about Chung Li is that every fight, it seems like what he does to the people gets more and more brutal with each fight.
Yeah, because he's getting a little bit more, I want to say, pissed or scared of Frank at this point. Because every time Frank wins, his eyes go like...
They're watching each other the entire time. And to a point where I think they pretty early on identify that's my main competition. Mm-hmm. In fact, when you get to the fight between Jackson and Chung Li, Frank has already scouted him out and is telling him, hey, man, his weakness is his stomach. Yeah. Hit him in the stomach. He's already basically been watching him closely.
And with Jackson being a big dude, one hit to the gut from him probably could put Chung Li down because Chung Li wouldn't be able to breathe.
So let's talk about Jackson versus Chung Li.
Chung Li. Jackson had a chance to win with his own style because he mollywopped Chung Li in the head. dropping him to a knee nonetheless.
Well, Jackson's one of the few fighters in this thing that probably maybe can match him strength-wise. It seems like he has some of that kind of brute strength.
Yeah.
But he gets him and then immediately starts celebrating. And even Frank is like, what are you doing? Get back on him. And he's like, right. Jackson. He's telling the crowd, Jackson. I was like...
And everyone's still saying Chong Li because everyone sees Chong Li just looks at him.
Chong Li's laughing like, this dude.
Well, I also think Chong Li kind of had some kind of respect for him because it's like, oh, this guy actually hits hard.
Yeah.
Because notice how he did a lot more to Jackson because he actually had to. Most people he dropped pretty quickly. Jackson, he did multiple hits to him.
So I didn't remember how this fight went down. In my brain, I thought my memory was... I was remembering Jackson beating him up, and then I was thinking Chong Li was going to throw like the salt in his eyes and then like kill him or whatever like that. And then... But he beats him straight up.
I remember, for some reason, I also remember Jackson being killed in this scene. I feel like it would have been more impactful if he was.
Nah, but the thing is, it's interesting because I think after this movie, that thing was done so many times where like the friend or whoever gets killed and then the guy has to avenge that.
They did it in Mortal Kombat with Goro and the one dude.
It happened in Kickboxer 2 also.
Yeah.
So it seems like almost like a cliche, but back then I'm thinking, okay, this is the first of the movie, so it's not really a cliche in this. But I guess it made sense because he kicked him and I thought he was dead, but then like in the hospital, they're just like,
yeah, he'll be awake.
They're like, thank goodness your head is so strong. It's like, well, that's true. He does have a big, strong head. But it looked like he gave him a kill blow.
Personally, I think it would have been a little bit more impactful if they did kill him.
And that's the Rocky IV thing too. It happened in Rocky IV where the Russian kills Apollo Creed.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think you need to kill him. I think that this movie was realistic and just like maybe lower the stakes a little bit. They're just like, hey, you'll be out in a week. Maybe have him in a coma.
Yeah, but at the same time, be like, oh, if you kept him in a coma, that would have been fine because now that's Frank's deal of I need to fight this guy. Now I was like, dude, your friend's alive. I mean, you're still in the competition. You're going to fight him.
But then
don't make it so serious now.
Then we don't get this surprisingly. I'll come to them for a second, then we'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
The scene in the hospital at the end is actually surprisingly kind of touching. When they shake hands, he's like, anytime you need me. And he's like, I love you. That was worth it for him to be kept alive. That was probably Van Damme's best acting in the movie.
Their relationship is definitely better than with the girl.
Yeah, so it's like it makes you feel good at the end of the movie versus if he wasn't in a coma, you'd feel kind of bad.
But then we get Chong Li in the last day of the Kumite kills his opponent there, and I'm like, I don't care about that character. Why is this an issue?
Well, let's cut back to him breaking Tong Po's leg.
Oh yeah.
So that's a character who plays Tong Po with hair.
Looks weird with hair.
He does. You have to watch it because then when you watch his face, you're like, oh, you see he's making Tong Po facial expressions.
Well, also he's not using Muay Thai in this movie.
Yeah, he's doing a different style. It's very interesting.
Which I'm fine with, but
I think for Kickboxer, he must have been like, I have to make something very unique here with my character.
Since I'm the main villain, yeah.
But I was surprised with how brutal this leg breaking thing is.
Yeah.
When they show his leg, I was like, oh, they didn't pull no punches. That was brutal. Jeez.
There was that. And then the other fight where he ends up killing a guy. And of course, everyone now has to show the respect for the fallen person who died.
Chong Li doesn't care, though.
Chong Li don't care. He's just like, oh, come on. He was a pussy anyway.
I took that 100% as Chong Li saying, I'm sending a message to Frank. He's next up. Can we kill this guy to put in his head? Because if you're facing someone who killed the last person, you're going to be kind of like, well, damn, my life's on the line here. So
but that's why I feel like
intimidation.
But think about
that poor dude he was just the messenger.
Yeah, but that poor dude also, Frank could have beaten the crap out of him himself. So that what kind of intimidation is that? For me, it would have more intimidation kill someone that could have potentially been able to beat Frank himself.
Yeah, but
which may have been the Tong Po dude.
Yeah, but you're saying that, but this dude was like in the final round, so apparently he was a really good fighter. He made it all the way to the end.
Well, so. Jackson would have been a good fight. Would have been in the final round if he didn't fuck up.
I thought it'd be interesting. What were they gonna do if Jackson had to face Frank? Because it's on the table where they both could have faced each other, right?
That would have actually been a pretty decent, ass beating that Frank would have given Jackson. Because we've already seen Frank's been watching everybody. He knew everyone's weakness. He knew I make him bleed. He's going to rage, which is going to give me the opening I need.
Frank's he's built up as a smart, even how he beats the big dude.
Yeah.
He's built up as like a pretty smart fighter.
Which, speaking of big dude, Johnny Cage reference, or I guess what eventually becomes Johnny Cage reference.
Oh yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest telltale sign of the Mortal Kombat influence is him doing the splits, knocking the guy in the nuts.
Well, wasn't Johnny Cage actually based off of Jean-Claude Van Damme?
That the creator I think said there, or they said online at least, that a lot of Johnny Cage was based on this Frank character.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, the fact that and I think even I think there's a line. There might be a line in Mortal Kombat, something about Johnny Cage. He says something about someone, either himself or someone else, like, "Oh yeah, you won that tournament in Hong Kong." There's some reference to Hong Kong, I think. That's like a sly nod to maybe this tournament. But yeah, I mean, shows a nut shot could really be
devastating.
Yeah, the dude just like he's like, I can't fight anymore.
Well, would you after that kind of punch?
He put all his might into that punch. So that's pretty rough.
He ain't got no balls no more.
I think maybe that, and then how Johnny Cage beats Goro. Maybe that's the universal message of like, if you're ever against a bigger dude, the one thing that's even about you guys
is nuts.
Is that you got one place to punch? Maybe that's the way to go.
So now we finally get Frank versus Chun-Li
and
Cocaine Eyes.
Cocaine Eyes. So the beginning of the fight. So the fight is pretty epic. I actually do like this fight better than the kickboxer fight now watching them. Because
first they're kind of back and forth, and then it gets more in Frank's favor.
You can tell because Frank, I think the advantage Frank has is that he can jump around, do flips. Mm-hmm. He's a lot more mobile than these other guys. Yeah. So like you run at him, he can jump over you. He can flip out the way. So he still has strength, but also like you really can't just keep him in one position and beat him up.
And I did ask you originally, like, because when the fight first starts, Frank was aiming for the head. I'm like, he knows his weakness. He said it to Jackson. Why not aim for the gut? Mm-hmm. Minute I said that, he starts kicking him in the gut. I was like, oh, okay.
So of course, out of nowhere. So up to this point, though, I mean, Chun-Li has been a straight fighter, not a cheater per se.
Well, now we get him as a cheater, which I think dampens the character.
I didn't like it, but I would say that I like the moment. This is probably Van Damme's best acting I've ever seen. When he's blind and like he has to do that slow motion, like cry out for help kind of thing.
He starts screaming like a little banshee.
Yeah, but I'm looking at his face and it looks like he's really going through something.
You know why? Because
that doesn't look
cocaine.
Like cocaine.
That was cocaine that went into his face.
His first experience with cocaine, he's really going through something. And they slow it down. It's hard for that to. It could look really goofy in slow motion, but to me it looks like
it was goofy.
I felt bad for him.
It was goofy.
No, I felt bad for him. I thought that was great acting.
Can we talk about how those stupid ass cops are just sitting in the stands?
Well, yeah. I mean, what are they gonna do? They can't jump in.
There's no reason for them to be there.
Chun-Li would kill both of them. And you have to have the moment. So this is like
where he remembers that he can see with his eyes closed, or react with his eyes closed.
The smart thing about the movie is when he first goes blind. He actually, I think he elbows Chun-Li still. Mm-hmm. So he still has that instinct to do it. It's just that then he kind of forgets about his training. And
gets beaten like crazy.
He calms down now. So this thing with him being blind, that's also stolen in the kickboxer movies as well. And I've seen it in other places too. Then when he comes back up and starts beating his ass, perfect. And then, of course, we get the classic Van Damme spin kicks. I think he hits him with like 4 of them.
No, he misses all 4 of them. Chun-Li is just like, are you going to do anything different, dude?
At that point, Chun-Li is just pretty much out the game. No, he gets all of them, 4 of them.
No, he misses all of them.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does. The foot literally went over Chun-Li's head.
Well, Chun-Li flew to the ground, so he's obviously
with the last one. I think the 5th one connected.
Oh, he got it.
That whole spin kick, 4 spin kicks, slow mo, like, dude, hit him.
Hey, if the first doesn't get you, the 4th will.
The 5th will.
But that's his go-to move. He uses that again in Kickboxer. Then years later, he used that on Stallone and in Expendables too. So.
Yeah, but he used it way too early.
Expendables?
Yeah, and Expendables too. He used that. That was literally the very first thing he did in that fight.
Well, that wasn't the Van Damme we know, because the fact that he lost the fight to Stallone is still.
But yeah, so he used his trump card too early. He should have waited until Stallone was weakened from the fight and then did it, and then he probably would have knocked his ass out.
True. That was a Travis sham mockery to see Stallone win. I'm just saying that.
That was still probably the better Expendable movie, in my opinion.
I actually was, you're right. And it speaks to all of them not being that good. So,
especially 3, even though that one had a really good performance by Mel Gibson.
Part 2 had that fun Chuck Norris cameo too. That was good.
Part 2 had a bunch of fun cameos.
Arnold was still in it. Yeah. Okay, and then Jackson, of course, celebrates his victory. He's the champion of the Kumite. Kumite. And tomatoes.
And they made Chong Li say mate.
To add extra embarrassment to him, he made him tap out because Chong Li had his boy's thing, his Harley Davidson little thing. So he had to
make him embarrassed, but still, for me, this final fight, the only thing I didn't like was the cocaine eyes. Just because it really does dampen the Chong Li character. Now it makes us think, well, in all the other fights, if he was losing, he would have just cheated to get what he wants. So what about all the other times before this movie when he was the champion? Did he do it all those times too?
So my theory is this is the first time where he even thought about the idea. And that's because this is the first time he actually was facing somebody who's like, I think it just speaks to his lack of confidence of being like, this is the first time I'm facing somebody that I don't feel that confident about. I may actually lose. Even then, I think the idea was only if I really feel like I'm about to lose am I pulling this shit out. He starts the fight off with no intention of that, but then he's on the ground. He's like, I am actually getting my ass kicked. Then he pulls it out. I think it's fine. I think what's funny is that Van Damme's acting blind. When you cut to his vision, though, what he's seeing,
it's blurry.
He's blurry, but I feel like he's playing it up a little bit to fool Chong Li because Chong Li's just like, oh, blind guy, look at him. But I'm like, when he cut to his vision, it's like, he can see enough to where he can beat your ass. So I feel like they didn't really say it, but I feel like some of that was like him playing him into his
possum
thing. Yeah, because they didn't cut to his eyes and show blindness. They cut to his eyes to show, oh, he can still see where he's at.
That's why I'm saying it's cocaine. It's in his eyes. It burns.
There's other things it could be, though, not necessarily cocaine.
It's cocaine.
Baby powder would burn.
It was in the 80s.
Baby powder would burn.
80s equals cocaine eyes.
Oh, my God. Well, that even makes more sense why he won the fight then, because he gets really hyped up then. So
first he has to get over the initial shock of the forced highness.
Yeah, once it settles in, he's like, oh, this is actually going to help me. I can have more energy. So at the end, Jackson going back on the plane, going back to his military job.
Going back to the brig is where he's going because he went AWOL for 3 days.
Yep. And we get the caption showing all of Frank Dukes' fake accomplishments.
Allegedly.
Later go on to be...
Just because they're disputed does not mean it's been proven as true or false.
Well, the only thing they're pretty sure about is they're pretty sure that if there was this tournament, it's not how he said, because he claimed in this tournament that he had to win 60 fights. And they did some mathematical thing where they're like, with single elimination, they were like, for the amount of fighters to have to win 60 fights, they were like, it was something crazy. Like there had to have been 1,000 fighters there or something like that. So,
yeah. Well,
they said there was no way there could have been 60 fights for one person.
You want to know why also it has to be bullshit? Because you pretty much just then outed the triads, the Yakuza, the Mafia, everyone who in this underground fighting arena knew about it, allowed it in their area.
So maybe if it happened, maybe he got threatened by the triads or somebody saying, hey, you better make this all seem like bullshit so we can still do our secret thing.
Yeah, because again, if it was true, the triads would have chopped them up into little pieces. The Yakuza would have chopped them up into little pieces. And the Mafia, they would have fed them to their Dobermans.
If it is fake, I mean, it's like, okay, well,
the guy just had a really good story,
and he made himself rich because of it.
Yeah,
which
is fine. People do it all the time.
This movie was a surprise hit, and after that, people were like, "Oh, this guy must be one of the best martial artists in the world." And then he was able to start doing fight choreography for other movies, so it worked. It's just that, and Here's the thing. I saw people complaining a lot about it. I'm like, do we really care if this movie is a true story or not? There's nothing about this movie that made me care about if this actually happened in real life or not.
Oh, no.
It feels like a fiction movie either way.
It is.
So it's like, I don't care about the dude's credibility.
Because again, if this guy, and I know there's evidence that he was prior military, but
yeah.
If this was real and he actually went AWOL, he wouldn't have been able to let this story go for a while.
No, I don't think so.
He'd be in the brig. Not to mention, apparently, I think one of the main reasons it gets disputed is he mentions he has a Medal of Honor, which is proven false because he's never been in any kind of combat situation in the military.
And probably so. If he lied about his credentials. He lied about his records, and then this tournament would have been the best lie because it's the perfect thing for a movie to do.
Oh yeah,
script, so.
And like I said, if it,
there's
no reason.
I'm pretty sure if nothing else, he got Van Damme to believe it. So.
And like I said, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter if it's a lie. It makes for a good movie.
It's not a historical movie where you're like, oh my god, this didn't happen. It's a fighting movie.
Yeah.
90% of fighting movies are fiction. So why would we care if this happened to be the one where it actually happened?
Yeah. So either way, it's obviously all still, from what I've read, seems to still be speculation. Like, it's also speculated that his trainer, his Sadoshi, isn't even a real person either.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to learn how to fight from someone.
When there's doubt online, people just go with the idea that it's bullshit. Like, if there's a little bit of doubt, people turn that into, oh, nothing happened at all.
Right. But
maybe some of it happened, and then a lot of it was highly exaggerated. Maybe none of it happened, but I just don't think it matters.
It does not with this kind of movie.
Like, I saw people online saying, like, even though it's not true, or like, so why even mention it? Who cares? Anyways.
I mean, did you like the movie? Yes? Okay, fuck off.
Yeah. Do you really watch and be like, oh my god, this is ruined for me because maybe it didn't actually happen this way? You stupid fuckers, like, you like all other fighting movies. Why would you why oh my god, if the raid was like supposedly a true story and you found it wasn't, you'd be like,
you know what else is not a true story? I'm sorry to tell you this.
Mortal Kombat did happen. There is an ancient tournament happening in another
Blair
movie.
Witch Project.
What?
I'm sorry to tell you, it didn't happen.
It's only one way to find out. We got to go in the woods with a camera.
The reason I know is because the 3 actors that was in that movie was
Dead.
seen.
They're gone.
Was seen surfing
They died
in Hawaii.
They died in the woods that day.
You know what else is not real?
What?
Cannibal Holocaust.
You're lying.
I'm not lying.
You son of a bitch. You're one of those people that tells the little kid that Santa Claus doesn't exist, aren't you?
No, Santa Claus exists to an extent. When he's daddy with the long ass beard.
Man. All right, I'm just gonna give my final thoughts and move on from this Santa Claus, Easter Claus, or whatever isn't real.
The Easter Bunny isn't real either.
Stop ruining my childhood, all right?
Freaking 55. You don't have a childhood.
55. Okay, who's Frank Dukes now? Who's exaggerating the story? Jesus. All right.
You know what? I'm going to constantly just give you random years of your age.
Yeah, Jesus. Rounded 20 years you're rounding me up? Jesus. Relax.
Yes.
All right. Anyways, after that weird intermission where Nick is defrauding all of the true real life existing icons.
There is no tooth fairy either.
What?
It was your parents that gave you the money for your baby teeth.
Cheapos. Gave me $2. My neighbor got $5.
I got $5.
See? What am I supposed to do with $2? I can get one ice cream from the ice cream truck. That's it.
You ready to hear? Exactly. That's all you need as a kid.
2 ice creams would have been nice.
Spicy chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A would have been nice.
Ooh. Okay, let me go final thoughts so I can go have a spicy chicken sandwich from somewhere.
You can't even eat spice.
Oh, damn it. The regular chicken sandwich.
Okay. They have deluxe versions now.
Oh, I'll get a pickle.
You already get pickles.
It's worth the extra $3.
No, what you get is lettuce and tomatoes.
Those should the fact that those are like extra options, those should come with a damn sandwich, man. What are you doing, Chick-fil-A? Lettuce. So you have to pay for lettuce?
Yes.
And who wants a tomato on a chicken sandwich?
Nobody.
So who asked for that nonsense?
Whoever did it to start, whoever made tomatoes to start with.
All right, I'm gonna get my final thoughts so we can move on. So, having not seen Bloodsport in about 20 years, although as a kid I did watch bits and pieces, a lot of it. I'll be honest, the one downside of the movie for me is the first 18 minutes. I feel like the first 18 minutes are kind of a drag. We talked about has the worst child acting of all time. I only have to. I don't blame the actor themselves. I blame the casting people for not cutting that part out, or the editors. In this case, maybe Van Damme for not cutting his child version himself out and be like, this doesn't help the movie at all. Misplaced flashback aside, once you get to about 18 minutes, once he's on the bus, from that point forward, I feel like we have a solid martial arts movie. Especially once you get about 35 minutes in. Once the tournament starts, the whole last hour is action-packed. You have a lot of different fight scenes showing a lot of different fighting styles. I like the Hong Kong scenery. When they're walking the streets of Hong Kong, it's really Hong Kong. It's not Vancouver. So I like the feel of that.
Allegedly.
I enjoy the relationship between Jackson and Frank. I'm a sucker for Van Damme. I find Van Damme to be like a likable. Like there's a lot of Van Damme movies where no matter what the plot is, I would just watch him fighting bad guys. It's just fun for me to watch him fight bad guys. Versus like Steven Seagal, who I really don't like at all. So
no one likes him.
Because he just breaks your arm. He doesn't really move. Van Damme does flips. He does splits. He flies around. He's putting in work. The Seagal movies, they just run at Seagal and he stays stationary and breaks their arm.
And allegedly Seagal dates women younger than what his daughter was in Under Siege 2.
Oh, wow. I know that. Wait, whoa.
Yeah.
His daughter like 14 or something in the movie?
I think she was 17 or 16.
What? Okay.
Allegedly.
I didn't know
I'm
that.
saying because the actress who played his daughter, she went up and said hi to him, and he goes, I got girlfriends younger than you.
So I didn't hear that. That's terrible. I heard stuff about him trying to hurt his stunt people on purpose.
Apparently, he also karate chopped John Leguizamo on the neck.
Yeah, basically taking things way too seriously, and then thinking himself.
And he's a pacifist, by the way.
And thinking himself to be some like world renowned badass that can defeat anybody. He actually had a beef with Van Damme in the 90s where they were almost going to fight.
And then he backed off because he knew Van Damme would have beat his ass.
Well, Van Damme, nobody's denied that Van Damme is like credibly some kind of martial arts champion in his past. It hasn't really been denied, so I have to think he's legitimate. So, he definitely has the athleticism for it, for sure. But yeah, Seagal just breaking everybody's arms. That's like all his movies. He breaks every bad guy's arms. Silly. I'm a sucker for Van Damme, and this is probably this is Van Damme's own favorite movies of his own, so that says a lot. Comparing to Kickboxer, I thought Kickboxer was better, but watching this a second time, I can see where people will like this better because it has a lot more fighting in it. And the fight in Kickboxer, there's only like 2 or 3 fights, and like most of it's just him training with the guy. Mm-hmm. So I can see where this is a better fighting movie for sure. The soundtrack and score are fantastic. This has amazing 80s music all throughout. The montages are very cheesy, but very 80s, and I appreciate that. The downsides would be the military people, the reporter woman, who I didn't really dig about the romance there, and the first 18 minutes. But...
So you just cut out half the movie there.
No, that's basically about a half an hour. I still have 1 full hour of basically just tournament fighting and Van Damme hanging out with Jackson. So it's hard. I think this movie also... I feel like this will have some rewatchability. I feel like I can watch this every once in a while, too. I feel like there's definitely going to be some rewatchability with this movie for sure.
After skipping those 18 minutes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make my own cut where I just cut out the first 18 minutes. So I'm going to give it a light 3 stars because I can see where it's inspired. I love tournament action movies, so that's one thing. Tournament fighting movies I'm a sucker for. I can see where people have a strong nostalgic bias towards it for sure. It feels like one of those movies where you probably loved it as a kid. But as an adult, I was reasonably entertained. Having watched Warrior recently, this was more fun than Warrior for sure. There's no question about it. Warrior was a complete slog compared to this. No, Warrior was a complete boring movie.
You lie!
If you want to cut off the first hour of Warrior and use that same logic that you're using, the whole first hour is a slog. So I'm going to give it a light 3 stars for me. Kickboxer will also probably get 3 stars when we do it, but I think it's a fun fighting movie. Oh, and I can't mention enough. The bad guy here is an all-time classic bad guy in Chong-Li. I think Chong-Li's such a badass, man. I think if T-1000 was coming at him, I think Chong-Li would hold his ground. Probably try to throw salt in his eyes, but hold his ground. So, light 3 stars for me. I only asked the powers that be somebody put out a reasonable DVD or Blu-ray of it that actually is purchasable on Amazon at a reasonable price and not some out-of-print thing, because, as Nick said, it's not that easy to find this movie, and I would like a physical copy of it. Yes, and we'll do more Van Damme in the future, but okay, go ahead next. Sorry.
So, for me, I'm going to go ahead and get the negatives out of the way, because actually, unlike most movies, the negatives are actually minimal compared to what I liked about it. What I didn't like is pretty much piggyback on what Vic said. The cops, didn't need them. The reporter lady, didn't need her. And the first 18 minutes of this movie, didn't need it. Didn't need any of that.
One note on that. I would say I do like the opening credits with showing the fighters, and I don't mind the adult training sequence. But I would have put that somewhere else in the movie, because you could have flashback that later on.
Nah, I mind it.
Okay.
The whole 18 minutes can be cut off.
All right.
But
I got you.
cut those what did I say? Those three things out. This movie is fun to watch. It has some good action scenes, has some good funny dialogue. I can't say the dialogue itself was good, but the dialogue was funny.
Who cares if Bruce Springsteen is his
It's his Shidoshi.
Yeah. Especially Jackson has some funny lines. So.
And if you want real comedy, just continuously watch Jean-Claude Van Damme's faces in this movie.
Yeah.
They were hilarious.
Especially when he's being chased by them. It looks like he's having a light workout.
Yeah, this movie is definitely fun to watch. It's good to sit back, turn your brain off, rewatch it, grab some popcorn, grab some butter. If you don't grab the salt, because Chong Li needs it.
Chong Li needs all the salt in the world, pretty much.
Yeah, and overall, I'm actually gonna have to agree with Vic. It's a light 3 stars. I can't give it a 2.5. I like the movie a little too much for that. So yeah, the movie is a 3 for me. I would just be skipping the 18 minutes. The other parts I mentioned are negatives. They're minor to where I don't care.
Yeah, I feel the military thing. The military, even though I don't like the thing, they only show up in like 3 scenes, so it doesn't like destroy the movie for me. If they made a huge deal about that and they were like all throughout the movie in every scene, but it feels minor overall, especially since by the end they take a back seat and just kind of hang in the background. Mm-hmm. So that's it for now. I think we'll definitely have to do some more Van Damme for sure. There's a lot of Van Damme I haven't seen, so I haven't seen Time Cop, for example.
Or you haven't seen the newest kickboxer movies coming.
Yeah. So
which apparently Van Damme's in.
Gonna have that whole series. So.
Dave Bautista is Tong Po.
That sounds to me like someone should have said Tong No.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Batista probably doesn't know Muay Thai.
I mean, he knows wrestling. But
anyway, so as always, you don't have to go home, but you do. If you feel like watching some Jean-Claude Van Damme, I'm sure there's a lot of them on Tubi. I know the entire Kickboxer movies are on Tubi.
But most notably, if you're going to pick 2, watch Hard Target and Bloodsport, because we reviewed those, and our Hard Target podcast is available also.
Yeah, and you most likely have already listened to it at this point, with how many views is on it.
Many of you have. That's by far our most successful video so far.
So please let this get successful.
This marks the end of Action Movie August, but don't worry, we're not going to wait till next year to get some action in. We'll be kind of filtering in certain things, certain genres going forward, but mostly we're a horror channel, so.
Meaning, eventually we will review Repo, because everyone loves Repo.
Repo, the boring opera. Eventually we'll get a review
opera.
of that. And especially Troll 2, though. That's the one everybody's looking forward to.
And no one's looking forward to that.
We announced this in the Getting to Know Us video, which very few of you watched, but the ones who did, we appreciate it. But pretty soon, for October, to get something on screen on video, you'll see our happy smiling faces soon enough. So stick with us through September as we figure out the technology involved to do this.
I plan on wearing a mask because honestly, I think we should get up to, let's say, at least 500 subs before y'all get to see my beautiful face.
Why don't you wear the Ghostface costume? You can talk like Candyman.
Yes.
There we go. Hey, the man can do the Candyman voice. All right, folks. In the meantime, all this talk about chicken sandwiches makes us hungry, and we gotta go.
Peace and love.
And Frank Dukes.
Not ducks.
Honest man.